anything that isn't serious. If you play music, if you draw pictures with a computer, that's not a game. You don't get a score, but we call it games, and there's sometimes this down thing. Don't play games, don't play around on the computer. And yet there's a lot of good can come from game playing.
All right, it's Monday. Monday. How's everybody doing? Let's see here. We got 43 people watching. We got Jim, Maker Viking, Tony Reek, Ram Design, Nadav, Chris Kennedy. Chris, I've got your Smeech in the tank today. Man, it's a Monday. I was up late last night trying to get Nextcloud set up on my server here. Way later than I should have been. Tony, recovering from the human malware. I hope you're recovering speedily. It's not fun. Just get plenty of rest. If you should be sleeping instead of watching here, you should be sleeping. Anyway, so how's everybody doing today? I can't tell if the room is hazy from the douche flute or if my lens is dirty. Let's see. Is it my lens? Or is it just the room? Maybe a little both. Oh, hang on. Before people get all upset. I forgot. Hang on. I know. I'm pulling Home Assistant up. Hang on. Click. There we go. All right. You happy? You happy there? Okay. Hopefully people won't get too upset that I forgot to turn it on. Okay. It's on now. All right. I'm trying to find a way for chat to be able to turn the cube on and off. I don't know if you noticed the little sus guy turned on too. I have them on the same Wi-Fi switch, and he powers on automatically. So, anyways, this is another Ask Tim stream, just as we do. I thought I was going to have to push it back. I was trying to get some stuff ordered and just handing some tickets and stuff. So, got a couple of companies ordering some stuff from us, so I have to make sure I get on top of them. I'll have to enter some purchase orders in later today. I ordered stuff, but I didn't enter purchase orders in. Aaron, don't get mad at me. But Tim, talk to Paul at drivemeinsane.com. That's an interesting domain name. Or are you talking about... Let me see. Oh, automation. Okay. Oh, I have heard of this. Is that website where you can, like, turn his stuff on and off? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that site's been up for a while. It looks like it's been up for a while. Yeah, I feel like I've seen that before. Oh boy. So anyways, how's everybody doing? You guys got to post questions in the chat. I don't have too many tangents today to go off on. Apparently Claire decided it's time to eat her lunch. So, but yeah, things I'm working on. I've got an Easy ABL kit here, and I'm going to be shooting a new video for the Easy ABL Pro specifically, using the CR10V2 as like the demo machine. I've got a few other things here. Bertha's all done. I got to clear the filament off. So Bertha's on the floor right now. I got to move all the filament up on the top rack here because that's where she's going to live. But the prints did come out well. This was the second print here. I did do a extruder calibration test on it, and I found that 463 was a little high. Like some people have been saying, 463 was a little high for our tough extruders. And I originally got that number because that's what E3D recommended at one point for their Titans, and it's all the same design. So that's what I use. Now, an interesting thing is I never had over extrusion with the 463 steps, and so I decided to multiply the 463 by 0.9 because that's the multiplier I use in my slicer for Simplify 3D, because most of the Simplify 3D profiles, they set the PLA extrusion multiplier at 0.9 or 90%. And if you multiply 463 by 0.9, you get roughly 413, which is right in the ballpark of where I calibrated to. So, like I said, you can actually... you can adjust your E steps, or you can adjust the flow rate in the slicer. So I never noticed an issue because the slicer was actually setting the flow rate low. But what I recommend people doing is do a calibration, get your E steps set to where when you extrude 100 millimeters, it actually extrudes 100 millimeters. So like on a Bowden setup, you'll want to disconnect the hot end, or the tube going to your hot end from the extruder. And I'll show you what I mean here in a sec. Let me just make sure. I really need to remember to clean my lenses. All right. So we should be good here. Let me move my notepad here. So yeah, so when you're doing an extruder calibration, you want to disconnect your Bowden tube here and then snip it flush right at the edge here, because then what you'll do is you'll tell it to extrude 100 millimeters, measure it, and then we actually have a new tool on our website that's free to use that actually has the steps and a calculator, so you can calculate what your E steps should be. And I'll show that really quick right here. I did it with a form plugin that supports calculations. And if we go to our site, let me just pull up, just use Edge for the demo, just because I don't use that browser. Let's see here. So if you go to our website, you'll see a tools option here. And if you go to E-step calculator, there's actually steps here on how to do it. So, you know, let's say I had 463, which was my starting point, and I tell it to extrude 100 millimeters of filament. Well, let's say I saw like I got 115. You'll see here it will give you in real time, and it does round because it doesn't matter. At a certain point, it doesn't matter how, like, what's the word I'm looking for? How close it is, because you have a million decimal places. So the form actually rounds it, but you can enter in your actual length that was extruded, and it'll give you your new E-step value. And I also have another field here that automatically puts the M92E in front of it, so you can literally just copy this, and then paste that into your serial command to change the E-steps. So, I even have notes here too. You'll probably need the hot end heated to 170 C or more to get it to extrude because of cold extrusion prevention. So just a nice simple little page here. Anybody can use it to calculate your E-steps. So there are a few other pages that did this, but they were very like rudimentary, and I was like, I'm gonna roll my own because like I knew the formula, so I plugged the values in, created the fields, and then this uses the formula to calculate everything. So, like let's say I do it again. I'm at like, I don't know, 403. You can keep doing iterations. So let's say you tried the next one, like, okay, 399, but now I'm at, 99. You just get as close as you can to where you want to be. So anyways, it's a really nice tool. You put in your E-steps, you put in what actually was extruded, and then it'll spit out the value. So you can see here, if it's bang on, then it just reads the same. But it does calculate different things. You can see it changes instantaneously for the most part. So you can do it. You get same thing here. Like if we do the creality and like, oh no, I'm at 105, it'll tell you what your new E-steps value should be. So, and these are lengths that you're measuring. So pretty simple. It should help people get their stuff tuned in a little bit easier. And like I said, it's just on the site. There's a tools section now. If you guys have any ideas for any other tools that we could put into like a page that people could use, let me know. And I'll see what I can do about getting those into the site. So, because I do have the ability to make forms that do calculations like this one with our website that we're using. So I would recommend that. So if you have any other information or tool ideas, let me know. And I'll make them. So, well, I'll make them if they are good. If there's stuff that's like really fringe and not worth the time to do, then probably not going to do it. But, yeah, anyways, so let's see. Let's get into the questions now. Tony Reek, any updates on a more advanced version of the Easy Board? Why is this? Hang on, let me put my status on Do Not Disturb. My apologies. I did not realize my status was not on Do Not Disturb. It's supposed to, because I do have these on my Outlook calendar. So anyways, I don't have any updates at this time. We're still dealing with a lot of delays with production. I'm trying to get more Easy Boards in, just of the current ones we have. And Griffin, who is our engineer, was supposed to be sending me some prototypes, but I haven't gotten anything from him yet. But I also know he was in a motorcycle accident about 3 weeks ago, so I know he's been a little under the weather. It was a minor one, but he's been very achy, and I understand that he's not been as available as he usually is. So, but we're still working on it. I wish I had be like, oh yeah, it's going to be a day, it's going to be a week or month, 2 months. Yeah, I'm not sure. We're trying to do the best we can to keep up with everything going on here. I see Jonathan Barnes' list of G commands and what they do. There's G-code commands. Marlin actually has a whole list of those already on their website. If you go to marlinfw.org, there is, I believe it's under, documentation, or sorry, help, G-code, and then all documents here. So if you go to marlinfw.org, you just click help and you'll see G-code and then all documents. And they actually have a list of all the G-code commands, starting with G and M, all of them. They're all documented in here. So like if you want to see like, I don't know, let's see, just a basic one like G28, It tells you all the different usage flags they have here. You can see the different parameters, that kind of stuff that you can send. The G29 options, and then they have one specific for like bilinear leveling, which is what our firmware uses for like the EasyABL and the BL Touch. So you can see different options that are in here. Another command you guys are probably familiar with is the M119. So your end stop states gives you information here on what the actual command does. And obviously this is a simple one. It doesn't really have many or any parameters you can pass to it. It's just more of a reporting one. But you can see here for the M48 test, which is enabled in our firmware, you can do different parameters. Usually you'll use the X parameter, the Y parameter, and then the V, which is the verbose level. I'll usually use V2, but you can just send an M48 with the X and Y position. That's X, Y position, and then the P, which is the count. But like these are these are not used. These are for Delta printers. The /schizoid probe. I'm probably saying that wrong. And the legs, these are Delta options, and these are actually stripped out on the 1284p builds just to save space, because these parameters actually take a lot to process. But you can actually see all the different G-code commands. This is right on the Marlin website. So if you're looking for a command, you want more information on it, or you just want to see what's available to you, this is a really good page to go to see all the G-code commands that are available in the Marlin firmware. So yeah, let's see. Dominic Versetto. I have an easy board in EasyABL. When I home Z, nozzle only 1 or 2 millimeters above the bed. Will that harm it? Should I raise it, or will that harm my EasyFlex? No, you should be about 2 millimeters from the bed if everything's calibrated correctly. You want to stick around the 2 millimeter range just so you do have extra clearance. But yeah, that would be fine. Depending on what probe you have, I'm assuming you have the full size probe. If you set the full size probe up, the calibration distance should be 2 millimeters. And by calibration distance, I mean the height the nozzle is off the bed when you calibrate the probe. If you're following along with the guide, which you should be, the Pro should be calibrated with the nozzle 2 millimeters off the bed, and the Mini should be calibrated with 1 millimeter off the bed. So as long as you have some distance between it, as long as you have some distance between it and your M48 test is reporting back under 0.01 millimeters of accuracy, then you're fine. You want to have that distance between the nozzle and the bed, so that way if your bed is like severely slanted, in some cases it can actually cause, like, you might have enough distance between the probe and the bed, but if your bed's really out of whack, you could run the risk of tapping the bed with your nozzle, which is why we have the distances in the guide. That's also the optimal distance that we recommend you calibrate to, because it's where the probes perform at their most accurate. Now, one thing I do want to mention is, like, the EasyABL Pro Mini, we do tell you to calibrate it with the probe mounted 2 millimeters higher than the nozzle and then 1 millimeter off the bed. So that's a total of 3 millimeters of distance from the probe to the bed. Now, if you have a bed that's really slanted and your nozzle is tapping, what you can do is drop the EasyABL Pro Mini down 1 millimeter in the mount, so you're only mounting it 1 millimeter higher, but still keep the same calibration distance, because that will then give you the 2 millimeter distance between the nozzle and the bed if you need a little more height. I do notice that Clara just ate her food and she probably needs to go out, so let me let her out really quick. I apologize. This is the first time she's had to go out on stream, but she did just pound her most of her bowl of food. So give me a sec. I have to let her out. Come on. All right, she is out. Okay, let's get back to chat. I have to pop it out in a web browser. Oh, it's going in my. It never goes. Well, I use 2 different browsers. I use Brave for all my personal stuff, and I still have my TH3D account on on Googly Chrome. But let me, my camera's just timed out. Hang on one second. All right, there we go. Forgot to change the settings. So anyways, let's see here. Let's get back into chat. All right, we got there. Okay, Adam is asking, try to narrow down what printer to get between the Sidewinder X1, Solval SV03, or one of the Creality CR10s, maybe a V3. Your thoughts? I haven't messed with the Solval SV03, so I can't really comment on that one. I'm aware of it. It's their larger format machine. I can't comment that their SV01 has been a pretty solid printer, especially for the money. Their build quality is pretty good. Their QC seems to be pretty good. But I also have a CR10 V2, and those guys that don't know, the CR10 V2 is the same as a V3, except the V3 comes with the direct drive upgrade kit, which I have right here, and I'll be fitting onto mine after I do the video for the EasyABL Pro installation on it. But otherwise, they're the same machine, the V2 and the V3. I've done a few prints with my V2, and it's been a decent machine. Out of the box, I think it's probably one of Creality's better machines. They didn't use one of those weird touchscreens on it. The board is decent, has Trinamic drivers. There are some drawbacks with how they have the drivers set up, like you can't run linear advance because they're in standalone mode. But for most people, it's actually a decent machine. What's the word I'm looking for? My only reservation for recommending the X1 is that I've had issues with the cables, like the ribbon cables messing up on it. I know a lot of other people have issues with the ribbon cables messing up on them, and they're all proprietary. So if I had to choose between SV03 and the CR10 V3, if those were my two options, I'd probably go for the CR10 V3 if you want direct drive. I think the SV03 might be direct drive too. Let me look that up before I put my foot in my mouth here. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's direct drive as well. Let's see. The SV03 is a 350 by 350 by 400, so it's a bigger build volume than the CR10 V3. Because the CR10 V3 is going to be a 300 by 300 by 400. Oh god, here come the odds. I'm sorry. Okay, looking at these side by side, going spec for spec, and the features, and the price, I'd probably go with an SV03. That's what I would do. Oh my god, I'm laughing because their product picture has the bin of broken hopes and dreams on it. Oh god. That's an interesting test print. And that looks like an actual print, not just a render. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go with the SV03. Looking at the price and the features, I do like that the Solval has the electronics underneath. I'm more of a fan of that stuff. I don't mind the control boxes, but I do think having everything mounted onto the bottom of the machine is a lot more compact. It saves space, especially if you have, like, you know, a farm or a bunch of machines. So, yeah, I mean, I'd probably give the SV03 a chance. Their SV01 was solid. I think that would be a good machine. I haven't heard bad things about it, so that's good. I also haven't heard too many bad things about the CR10 V2 or the V3s. So, Lightspeed, what do I think about the Mutant? I think it's interesting. There's also another company that came out with a similar. The Mutant's like this modular mount system for your printer. There was another one. It was on Printer Mods came out with it. I can't remember what it was. What is theirs called? The Exchange. It's the same idea. It's basically like a plate system. it's basically like a plate system, so you can change out your different tool heads. I'm not a big fan of Kickstarters. I would recommend you wait till it actually comes to market. I've gotten screwed over from many Kickstarters. But yeah, like this is also, if I had to choose between this and the mutant system, I'd probably go with this just because one, this is metal, the other one is plastic, and they're also making this in the USA, and I'd like to support as much stuff in the USA. It's really hard in this industry. It's really hard in this industry to find stuff made in the US because, you know, everything's done in China or, you know, Taiwan. So I'm really happy to see that they're actually doing this in the US. But it also just looks like a really good system. Like how everything's designed, the power delivery, the pins, it looks really good. Teaching Tech did a video on this. So, but it's a really, really neat system. But yeah, basically they're both like tool head changing systems. And if this is something that appeals to you, then I'd probably go with the printer mods one. It just looks a little more robust. But yeah, anyways, let's see here. Richard said, hi, last week said no more deliveries to UK. Can you recommend an alternate to the Easy Pro? I'm assuming you mean Easy ABL and the Dual Z kit. I'm not sure. There was one guy that was in the UK that was selling his stuff over there. He had knockoffs of our stuff. I won't get into that. That could be an hour rant. But he's just disappeared. So, I mean, unfortunately, you're probably just going to have to go with a BL Touch and see if you can find any other vendors. But as much as I would love to ship to the UK, the amount of paperwork that'd be required for us to comply with their new laws that they're forcing on everybody would be way too much. Like, it would be way too much time. We would have to hire somebody to do more accounting work. And we already have a ton of accounting work just complying with the US laws. So unfortunately, we had to cut that off. It just isn't going to be worth our time. I am talking with 2 different suppliers over in the UK because selling wholesale to a UK seller is a lot less complicated than shipping directly to the UK. I'm sure that's what they were trying to do, is make it so that instead of companies are shipping directly into the UK, that you now go through a seller to try to drive business to the UK. So I'm not sure I feel about that, but we're working on trying to get some UK distribution over there. I've got, like I said, 2 companies I'm talking with right now. I just only have so much time in the day to kind of push those things through. So let's see here. Sean says, I've been having Z-banding. Let's see here. I've been having Z-banding only on one side of a particular print. So does that mean it's only on one side? Or both? Or, sorry, not one side, but one print? Like only on one specific type of print? That's a new one. Or is it on all prints? He said, I thought it's a mess. I thought it's a bad mesh issue. I tried fading, but this fade isn't working. M420 Z10 doesn't work for me. Am I missing something? The fade is probably disabled. I'm pretty sure we have that disabled in our firmware because it does cause issues when people don't use it correctly. And I have seen just weird issues in general with it. So I'm just double checking our configuration, but I'm pretty sure we don't have that we don't have that enabled. Yeah, it's not even in our configuration. Because we've just had weird issues with it. So you're not, M420 Z10 isn't going to do anything because Z-Fade isn't enabled. You can try enabling it in the firmware. You would just add in the configuration line, and I'm trying to remember what. Oh, hang on. I have the original Marlin configs in our firmware code, so let me see what that is. It is define enable leveling fade height. I will post that in chat. Where'd my live chat go? I had it here. Here it is. So you can try this. I would also try if it's just that one print. I'm wondering if you're getting like where it's partially starting to release from the bed. You can also try moving it to a different location on the bed. and see if that helps anything. But that's weird that it's only on one print. I don't think it would be Z-banding if it's only on a particular set of G-code. Maybe try using a different slicer. Try slicing for a different layer height. Like, let's say you're doing 0.2, try like 0.24 or 0.3. Just go up or down a little bit and see if that makes a difference. I feel like I've had prints like that in the past where like everything prints great, but there's this one print that just won't come out well. And I can't remember what I did to resolve that, but I would try playing with the layer heights because I have issues in Simplify 3D where if I slice at a certain layer height, the part comes out weird. But if I just change it just a little bit, and change the layer height just a little bit, then it does slice correctly and print correctly. Yeah, that's what I recommend. Just play around. I mean, it sounds like if it's only doing it on one print, it sounds like it could be something related to how it's being sliced, or just the geometry of that part that you're printing is causing it to like come up. Because if you have a part that's slightly starting to come up on the bed and it's very slow, what'll happen is it'll look like banding. So if that side's like starting to release, I have had issues where it's like, why does this look weird? And I look at it and there's ever so slight curve to it. Because if that's coming up, it's going to look like Z-banding, because maybe the odd layers are going down fine, but then the even layers is when it's starting to come up. I would say it sounds more like a slicing issue or a physical print issue. I'm assuming you've ruled out all your Z moving correctly type things. Let's see here. Light speed. I need a powder coated sheet for my rail core. Have you seen the Wham Bam sheet versus the ones you sell? Yours are half the price. Yeah, I know we're cheaper on them, and we ship from the U.S. As far as I know, they're still shipping from China directly. But I did actually talk to Joe from Project R3D because I do want to get flex plates for my Dauntless here, it's in the garage. I got to actually set it up. I'm probably going to put it right there where my test machine is. But since the beds are the same on the Dauntless as the rail cores, I do want to get that size sheet in for the magnetic base and the sheets. I just got to have Aaron make the design file. But Joe was also supposed to send me the cut file for the bed, so we can just use that. So it's exactly, we'll do the rounded corners and everything, all that fancy stuff. So... Robert Thomason, can I adjust the thermal runaway settings for my easy board for the CR10 S4? I can't go above 65C because it takes so long to heat up. I'm surprised you're able to get past 65C because I had an S4 and that thing took ages, and I could usually only get to about 240. Yeah, right. I could usually only get to about like 60 tops, and then it would just kind of plateau and not go anywhere. I don't recommend you change them, but if you want to, those settings are located in the configuration ADV file. You will have to compile from the firmware source code, meaning you'll have to just use VS Code. It sounds scary. It's not. There's a video on how to set up VS Code to generate that bin file. But we already have that temperature threshold set, fairly high. And I have the code here. So this is our configuration adv.h file. And if you look here, starting at line 217, we have the parameters for the bed. So you can see here we have it set for the watch period. It's going to have 240 seconds to increase 2 degrees Celsius. And then this is the watch temp period. I believe this is, I always get these flipped. Oh wait, hang on. This is for heating fail. Yeah. So this is the initial heat up, and then this is the maintaining. So when it's in the maintaining loop, meaning it hit the target temperature and it's just maintaining, it's got 120 seconds to get into the 2 degree of the target heat. So let's say it hits 65C. It's got 2 minutes to keep it within 2C of the actual bed temp. If not, it's going to trip for the runaway. For this here, this is the heat up period, which means we have 4 minutes to heat 2 degrees Celsius. So the bed has to heat 2 degrees Celsius within 4 minutes for it to not trip the heating failed feature. That's a thermal runaway protection feature. Now, if you want to give it more time, you could change this number here. You'd want to change the 240C or 240 seconds value here. You can put like 500 in here. I wouldn't recommend doing it. In my experience, the S4 beds, they struggle above 60C. They just don't have the wattage to do it. One thing you can do is, you may have done it already, is you can actually bump the voltage up on your printer power supply. That's a 12-volt system. You can try increasing the voltage to 13.5 volts. Don't go much higher than that. That's actually what I did on Bertha to get it to heat up quicker. Because like most of your fans, your heaters, all the stuff that runs on 12 volts, 13.5 will be fine. I haven't had any fans or heaters or anything freak out, or boards running at a 13.5. So it'll give you a little more power. But I would also check, make sure that your MOSFET and all the connections going to the bed are in good shape. But like I said, I had a CR10S4 about a year and a half ago. I ended up trading it to a buddy of mine for another machine. But I couldn't reliably get past 60. Like 60 was the limitation where I could hit. If you are trying to go past 60C regularly, I would highly recommend checking out the Kinovo heaters. Kinovo is a company that makes AC silicone bed heaters. Now, they are an involved installation. If you have basic electrical skills and common sense, it's not that hard of an installation. We've done them on the S5s as well, and you basically get a solid state relay, a circuit breaker for protection, and then the heating pad, and the solid state relay will control the AC bed current. You stick the Kinovo to it's a pad with adhesive on it. You stick it to the bottom of the plate, and then the solid state relay connects to one leg of the bed, and then the other leg goes to your neutral plug from your wall power. So we have a wiring diagram on our site of how to connect an SSR. Let me see. I'm just pulling the page up here. So this is in our help center. You can check this out here. So this is how we do bed heaters for solid state relay connection for an AC. So you can see here we've got the line coming in from the power cord. So I'll usually run a separate power cord just for the bed. So your printer will have two plugs, one for the control box and then one for the bed. And if you run a battery backup, splitting that off is nice because you can run the power for the bed on the non-battery backup side, because the bed is a huge load and it'll usually overload most battery backups unless you have like a really high-end industrial commercial one, just from the wattage alone. But if you're just trying to protect your printer from like brief power flickers or outages, you can usually get away with it being turned off for a little bit. But you can run the control box on the battery backup side and then have the AC bed go right to your wall power, so it's not putting that load on there. But anyways, this is how we connect ours. It's actually pretty simple. Like I said, you have the heater, the solid state relay, and the breaker. Your printer was bored the factory wires that went to your bed already. You probably have a MOSFET on the S4, so you could just bypass the MOSFET because you won't need it with this. But the printer control board can control the solid state relay to turn this connection on and off to regulate this, just like your stock heated bed. So it's a fairly easy connection. You just have to be very careful, make sure you do everything correctly, insulate all your ends, because this is obviously line voltage. That's the only drawback with using AC beds, is they are line voltage. You have to treat them with respect, and you have to make sure that you take the time to do things correctly. But this is your basic wiring diagram for an AC bed. I always add a circuit breaker here right before the solid state relay in case we get a short, somewhere on here. And if you notice here, I have a note here: connect to bed, carriage, and printer frame. So when we do the installations, we ground the printer frame, and then we'll also run another wire from the frame to the printer bed itself, just for added protection, because you want to have a path to ground in case like a wire gets frayed or something, or the bed gets damaged, so it finds ground through the wire and not through your body. But let's see here. Let me see if who is asking about the S4. That was Robert. Did Robert post anything else here? Yeah, you've already done the 12 gauge wire. That's one thing I did to my S4, and even with the 12 gauge wire and the bigger MOSFET, and you already tuned your PSU at 13.5, it's just that bed just doesn't have a lot of watts to push. I believe that was only like a 200 and like somewhere around 200 watt bed. Creelli did not put a very powerful bed on there. You can try also insulating. I don't know if you saw the stream from Bertha. I don't know if I have it. No, I put them away. But you can also insulate the bottom of the bed. There's a pipe wrap I use that I picked up from my local hardware store. And it's good up to 150 degrees Celsius. It's like an insulation backed. Damn yawns. Sorry. I wonder if it's because of how the lights, like, hitting me. Because I was not yawning before I started the stream. But anyways, you can try insulating the bed too. Like, Bertha only has a 250-ish watt heated bed. And I can get up to 60C. But again, I also can't get it much past 60 anyways. Yeah, yours is insulated from the factory. So it sounds like you've already done everything you can to eke as much performance out of it as you can. One thing I do want to note, if you are using the PID bed setting, which is disabled by default, meaning if you turned it on, you might not be able to hit those higher temperatures. One of the reasons we have the PID bed disabled in our firmware by default is because we do have a half-second PID loop, or not a PID loop, but a half-second interval for the what's called bang bang regulation, which means it checks the temperature. Are we at temp or not? It's really simple. Are we at temp? Yes. Okay, do nothing. Half second later, are we at temp? No. Okay, heat. Are we at temp? No. Keep heating. Are we at temp? Yes. Stop heating. So that's how the bang bang works. It's a half second interval, which gets your beds into a pretty damn accurate setting. Like most of my beds stay right on temp because it's checking every half of a second. So, you know, like I said, the bang bang regulation works like I said, we're at 60 temp. Okay. Are we at temp? Yes. Okay. We're going to not heat the bed. Are we at temp? No. Okay. Heat the bed half second later. So each jump is a half second. Whereas PID, once it starts getting closer to target temperature, it starts flipping it on and off. Okay. So like imagine this is on, this is off. So it starts going like this very fast. And what'll happen is with these bigger beds that don't have a lot of power, it'll kind of just stall out, and you can PID tune the bed and it does make it a little better. But in my opinion, if you're going to be using a very large bed, you should just stick with the bang bang regulation because it's much more aggressive, and those beds do a lot better when they're full blast on and then off, full blast on and then off. You know, they're not heating up too fast. So, but you can try increasing it. But like I said, in my experience, the S4, it just, once you get past 60C, it just kind of plateaus, and it's not meant to hit those high temps. I can never get mine past 60 reliably, especially like if I had it here in this garage, which is a little bit cooler, I'd probably trip thermal runaway too. But yeah, like I even replaced the wiring on the bed, like going to the bed like I did on Bertha. I replaced the wiring from the MOSFET to the bed, you know, not just from the power supply to the MOSFET, but power supply to MOSFET, 12 gauge, and then MOSFET to bed, also 12 gauge, and it didn't seem to help much at all. I just remember taking a reading off of the actual bed, and it was just around 1 ohms, which if I do... I really need to just remember Ohm's law, but there's just all these websites that you can just plug values in. Yeah, so 12 volts, 1 ohm resistance, that's only 144 watts. That's not a lot of heat. And let's say it was 0.8, because I know Bertha's came out to like 0.8 ohms of resistance at 12 volts. That's 180 watts. That's not a lot. But like, just for example, if I, like on Bertha, I went to 13.5. Now I'm at 227 watts instead of 180. So check the resistance, but I'm pretty sure I remember, it's been a while since I've touched that machine because I got rid of it. I'm pretty sure that one only had like a 0.8 or not a 0.8 ohm, but a 1 ohm resistance, which, like I said, even at 13.5 volts, you're coming at right around 182 watts. Now, the Alpha U10 does what's the word I'm looking for? Does have a higher wattage bed, so I am actually able to get up to 60 fairly quicker than the S4, but the S4 I remember took forever. Let's see here. Let's see. All right, let's go back. We went off on a tangent on beds. But to answer your question, you can adjust the thermal runaway settings, but I'm willing to bet even if you do or even disable it, which I wouldn't recommend doing, you're probably not going to get past 65C. A lot of people think that, oh, I can just tell the printer go there and it'll do it, but some machines like the S4, they just aren't physically capable of it. All right, moving on. Primo Sec, hey Tim, how do you deal with deal with retraction on long boat ends with all metal setups with pressure? With pressure advance, I got to 4mm on E3D V6, but apparently it's still too long as I get jams on a lot of retractions. So one of the things I do to mitigate that is I put on the tighter tolerance tubing. I have some right here. This is stuff we sell in the shop. All of our production machines have this. And the reason they have this, whether we have an all metal or not, is because this diameter right here of the center, this is 1.9 millimeters, whereas your stock tubing is anywhere from 2, and I've seen all the way up to 2.2. And the problem is that when your printer retracts, okay, it's going through this tube, and even when it extrudes. So depending on how tight this diameter is on the inside here, when you do a retract or extrude, instead of it actually doing the retract and extrude at the hot end, there is some slop where the filament is pushing on one of the sides of the walls of the tubing before it actually does the retract. So by going down to a shorter or a tighter tolerance on the inside of the tubing, you eliminate, or well, not completely eliminate, but you reduce the amount of slop that's in the tubing. So I don't know what tubing you're using, but this is one of the things I do to reduce the retraction on machines, like even not on all metals, but if I put this tubing on a machine that has stock tubing, I have to lower my retraction because otherwise I will jam because it's pulling too much then. But that's one way. You say you have an E3D V6, those ship with all metal heat breaks. One thing you should do with an all metal heat break, if you are getting jams, it's usually common with PLA, is to run a filament oiler. And if you guys have ever, I've mentioned this before on the streams, if you guys have ever used like cast iron cookware benefits from being used because it builds up a kind of non-stick coating as you use it, as the oil you cook with kind of solidifies and becomes a layer on top of that, the metal pan. It's the same kind of thing with your heat break. You need to kind of get it seasoned to where it's less tacky, because you got to remember PLA is usually like a starch based plastic, which is essentially a food. I obviously don't eat your PLA, but it's not ABS. It's more of an organic thing, because PLA it's actually biodegradable. It takes a long time, but it's not ABS. It's going to take ages and ages to degrade. But the point is, what I found is on a new all metal hot end setup, I'll run a filament oiler for about a month, and that'll usually give it time to kind of break in or season the hot end or the heat break. One other thing you can do too, and we've done this on newer ones, and they both seem to work. They both seem to work well. Is you can buy what's called dry PTFE lubricant spray. WD-40 makes some, DuPont makes some, and it's a PTFE spray. You can clear the hot end out, make sure you get everything out of there. You don't want any filament in there, and just kind of shoot it down into the hot end, let it dry, and then do a print, and it'll put a light coating on the inside of the heat break. Now, eventually that will wear away, so it doesn't really season it, but it does last a long time. We're talking a couple of months. I'm just pulling up an article here, and I will post it in the chat. But all the little tricks and stuff and the different methods to reduce jamming with an all-metal hot end, this applies to any brand, not just E3D, not just our stuff, not just Micro Swiss. It's a blanket thing, because the reality is, no matter what brand of all-metal you have, it's going to be more prone to jamming up with PLA. It's just the nature of how these hot ends are. We also do carry, and this is what I used on Bertha's build, because I'm pretty much only doing PLA and PETG, is there's heat breaks that allow the PTFE tube to pass all the way into the melt zone. So you still get the benefits of the nozzle selection and the better cooling that the V6 setup heatsink offers. But you can also run then like the high temp tubing, like the one I showed earlier, like our tough tubing. And then you still have a PTFE lined hot end, but you still have the other benefits of the V6. And I run that on some machines where I don't need the high temp. You know, I'm not going past like 260 on the machine. The tough tube we carry, that's good up to 275 for continual use. Any higher than that, we would recommend you go to an all metal. But I will tag you here. I'm trying to find, where are you here? Primo. Are you not in chat anymore? Because it's not tagging you. Unless live chat messed up. No, it's still coming through. But yeah, there's a number of different ways you can do to, or number of different things you can do to try to mitigate that. And also, I'm assuming you're playing with retraction settings because you're getting a lot of stringing. Try a completely different roll of filament from a completely different brand, preferably something you didn't use yet. Because I have had filaments where no matter how well I tuned them, they always strung because it was just a bad batch of filament. So before you go chasing your tail on everything, try a completely different roll of filament, preferably a new one from a completely different brand, and see if the same issue persists. Because I had black filament from Ziltech that no matter what I did, no matter what printer it was on, no matter what settings I used, what print temps I used, it always strung. So I should have mentioned that earlier, but it just came to me now. Because I've dealt with that where I'm like sitting there for hours, like running test prints and trying to be like, why the hell won't this string go away? And then finally I just grab another roll of filament from a completely different vendor and everything works. So sometimes it's a plastic too. That might be your issue as well. So hopefully that gives you some information to go on. Let's see here. Chris Kenny, any plans about CR6 stuff, specifically fork into unified firmware and EasyBoard, but retain their LCD now that there are community versions for both? I haven't been following the CR6 stuff very closely, aside from we did do the stuff with the power switch. We do have those in stock again. But I'll tell you right now, the EasyBoard is not going to be able to be dropped into that machine because they use proprietary headers. Like I've got, just so you guys can see why you can't do a drop-in. As far as I know, Big Tree Tech is the only company that makes a drop-in board for that. And it's not as easy as just swapping a board out of any other machine because... Hang on, I have to open this. Because this is how they connect. And I bought these because I am worried about the stock Creality board. I want to see if Big Tree Tech actually made a halfway decent board. But anyways, this is how stuff connects to this. Do you guys see this? These are the expansion headers for the hot end carriage and other connections. So there's no, if you notice, aside from the bed and the 24 volt, there's no terminal for the hot end. There's there's stepper drivers that come out onto these pins here, and they even have proprietary connectors here for, well, not proprietary, but just not in standard connectors here for some of the motor connections. So this is why replacing the board in a CR6 is not an easy task, because you would have to map out these pins and then make either an adapter PCB or cut the wires and then splice them into regular wires to hook up a different board. I'm not a big fan of machines that do that because they make repairs and maintenance and upgrades much harder. You know, and I believe I mentioned that in the teardown. That's one of the reasons I did not like that machine, other than the fact that there's been a lot of issues with the stock boards catching on fire. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Literally, like, shooting stuff out, leaving char marks inside the housing. I'm not aware of ones that actually, like, started a fire that sustained. It was more like the board just went, and that was it, luckily. But I bought these boards because I'll take my chances with Big Tree Tech in my CR6 over the stock board than when the stock board's known to have issues with it spontaneously combusting. So yeah, the short answer is the CR6 is very low on the priority list. It's just got too much proprietary stuff. It's got the cable connections for the board that, you know, are proprietary. They're not easy to retrofit. The LCD is a touchscreen, so it's batting 1,000 for modability. It's one of those machines that you use it stock. It's one of those printers that you just buy it and use it stock. It's not a very moddable one. Like, the reason the Ender 3 and even the 3V2 are so popular, and the other machines from Creality, is because you can mod them, because you can upgrade them, because you can start with a base machine and, you know, make it exactly what you want. Whereas a CR6, you're kind of locked into what they give you because of the choices they made. Now, you know, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's significantly more work to do things to those machines than to other models. Yeah, Paul Millie said his board USB failed, and then a couple weeks later it totally died. Worst printer I own. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I totally forgot about USB. Joel Telling and a bunch of other people have literally had the board fry USB ports on their computer. They've had cables melt because they shorted out and just melted the cable. So computers are getting damaged. The boards are getting damaged. I don't recommend the CR6. I do not. I do not recommend the CR6. One of my buddies just bought, he's like, oh, I got a 3 printer. I was like, oh, what'd you get? I assume he would tell me an Ender 3. Well, he got a CR6. I was like, dude, return it and get an Ender 3 Pro or an Ender 3 V2. The CR6 is just, it's not a very reliable machine. It has too many issues. M. Pulford 311 says, I have a Sunlu S8 printer. Can I download your firmware even though I don't have the easy ABL and still better settings than what I have with the stock firmware? So the short answer is you might. I'm waiting for one of the guys on our MeWe group. He has a Sunlu S8, and it looks like they have changed the board in those, and he says that it doesn't work. Now, he did tell me he got configuration files from Sunlu that work with the machine, so he's sending those over to me. But we do have a notice on the site that if you have a Sunlu S8, if your board says, I think it's like SH2560 is the marking, the firmware might not work on it. I did request firmware source code from Sunlu. The thing is, I don't have the Sunlu S8 we had. My brother Doug has it now. He's using it at his print farm. It did not have that board, so they changed the board after release, and ours was only about 4 months old when we got around to actually doing stuff with it. But I'm just pulling up our site here. There's a note on our firmware page that some Sunlu S8 have been seen with the board SH_2560_A4988 PCB. These machines may not work with this firmware, and then we're working on getting the source code. The reality is, once we get the source code, we will be able to get it supported. It's just I don't have that machine here. So normally what I'd have to do is go through and probe the pins and see where everything goes, and then modify the pins file, and we're off to the races. But I'm going to tell you right now, Sunlu better provide the damn source code, because they are using Marlin, and you guys know how I feel about people or companies violating the GPL. I also know a lot of people that follow this channel, and a lot of our customers bought an S8 because, you know, even though it wasn't that great out of the box, after a few little cheap modifications, it's actually a decent printer. So I hope they do come through. I hope they do provide the source code. And this is the reason why having source code is good. You know, obviously, like, as a company that makes mods, we want to be able to have the source code so we can make firmware to drive our products on there. But as a consumer, if you want to do upgrades and your own modifications, not just stuff from us, you'd need the source code. So the TLDR is they have to provide it unless they want to be in violation of the GPL. And if they're in violation of the GPL, then I will let you guys know. But yeah. So, yeah, I would, if you want to try flashing yours, just double check the board. I would say if you have, that SH2560 board, I would probably not flash unless you have the original firmware from it. Because, like I said, I only have one report of somebody telling me it's not working. It could be that, like, I know a lot of people bought the S8 after we got done having our way with it. And I haven't heard any other reports of it not working. I don't know if maybe this guy just got a weird board, or if everybody else just got the older board. it's kind of hard to tell. So if anybody in chat has an S8, let me know what board you have. Do you have the one that's got just no markings on it, or do you have that SH2560 labeled one? And if you do have the SH2560 one, are you guys using our firmware and does it work on there? Because the pictures I got of that board looks like it's just a slight revision from the original one. And it would be weird to me that Sunlu would make a board revision and then change pin settings. But it's not out of the realm of possibilities. So, Max CJ asks, what upgrades do you recommend for the Ender 3 V2? Really depends on what you're doing. The Ender 3 V2 is actually a pretty decent machine out of the box. At the very least, I'd recommend you run Creality's latest firmware. I do want to mention that there is a known issue with the Creality Ender 3 V2, and it's tied to the LCD, and the code that drives the LCD is that sometimes when you tell an axis to move, like an X or Y, the extruder will just start backing filament out. And it's a bug with the Marlin firmware, and I have not been able to isolate it. I also haven't been able to replicate it, but other people said they had the same issues with theirs. So as far as I know, it's only when you're controlling from the LCD. If you're doing it from like the G-code terminal or Octoprint, that issue doesn't present itself. As far as I know, I could be wrong. I'm just giving you information based off of what I know. But like on our Ender 3 V2, there's an article in our help center. It's in the upgrades section about changing the LCD out to the same one the Creality Ender 3 uses. It's a very cheap upgrade. You just need the LCD and a printed part, and then you can flash it as an Ender 3. So you still get all the other upgrades of the Ender 3 V2, like the tensioners and the newer board and all the other stuff. But then you get all the features of the other LCD style. The color LCDs are almost like the color LCD on the Ender 3 V2 is almost as limited as the touchscreen LCDs. So, but you can easily change it out. So, Jack Monroe, Ender 5 flash with TH3 on the Silent 427 board, auto clicking when heated bed problem. That's because Creality doesn't know how to design boards with proper filtering, and you need to get the pull-up board we sell in our shop. We have a board that plugs onto the LCD header that adds filtering to those pins that fixes the problem. It's a hardware problem with the board. It's not a firmware issue. The reason that happens is because it's getting interference, and it's very common on the Ender 5s. It happens on the 427 boards. It happens on the 422 boards. It happens on the Big Tree Tech boards. And we have a product to fix their product's issue. So we do sell the 427 board, and on that product page, we do have an add-on for the filtering board. So I'll post that link in the chat. I'm trying to find here. Yeah, it's called the EMI filter board, and that would be this guy, Jack Monroe. You plug that onto your LCD, and it fixes the issue. So our Easy board, we properly filtered the pins. Ours doesn't have this issue, but this little board allows you literally just pop it on here, and it fixes the problem. So this adds additional filtering to those pins so it doesn't do that when the bed heats. It's a very simple thing. There's no firmware changes. You literally just plug it onto the header like this, and you're on your way. It'll fix the issue. So, and this will work on the SKR E3 series, 422, 427, and that'll take care of that issue. So, but that's a hardware issue. There's nothing you can do in the firmware, because what's happening is because the electrical interference on those lines, because they're not properly filtered, the processor thinks that, so the signal's basically going like this, thinking the button's being pressed. So when you press a button, it pulls that pin down to ground, okay? So we go from the reference voltage, which on these is 3.3, so it should be up here, okay? But you press the button, it grounds it out, and it goes, okay, the pin state changed from high to low. The button was pressed. Do what the button's supposed to do when it's pressed. So, and then it goes back up to its voltage, okay? Until you press it again, it goes down, and then so on and so forth. Except what's happening, instead of it being up here, because of the interference, it's kind of like going like this, and it's getting right under the threshold where it's getting close to 0. So instead of being up here all the time, it's kind of like this, and then it thinks you're pressing the button because of the interference it's getting. So, R Mills is he's waiting to get his Hero Gen 5 from Aaron. I've got an Air 5 Pro with an easy board. How do I set the offsets that are mentioned in the instructions for install? You would use the custom probe feature. There's a feature in our firmware called custom probe. You would uncomment, or depending on what interface you're using, I can just show you guys here on the easy firmware site, because there's multiple ways to do it with the easy board. Let me switch over here. So you could do just the online editor if you're doing this, like if this was in VS Code, or if you're using this, you would uncomment this line here, so custom probe, and then scroll down and you'll see the custom probe settings right here. And then there's directions here and an example here. It looks weird in here. It looks correct in VS Code, but because how the website renders it, this text ASCII-like diagram doesn't come through correctly. But you would enter in your X offsets here and your Y offset, and that's where it is in relation to the probe. If you're using our easy config system, you would just go through and select your mount, and you do the custom probe mount, and then this is where you enter your offsets. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. Yeah, and then you can do the config and everything on here. So yeah, someone's trying to use a Tron XY. Interesting. So, anyways, yeah, so that's how you would use the custom probe. And I would recommend, now, Hero Me does usually have their offsets listed, but I usually just take my calipers and I measure them on the X and Y. I'll usually do that even if a mount has, I'll usually measure myself even if a mount has offsets listed, because sometimes they're wrong, or they were right at one point and the person never went back and updated the offsets after making changes to the STLs. So me personally, I'll always get my calipers out. I'll go from the tip of the nozzle to the tip of the probe and then just measure, be like, okay, I'm, 40 on here, and, then, look on Y, okay, I'm like 10 on here, and then enter those into my firmware. So that's what I do. Anyways, let's go here. Odagger, hey Tim, when you do multiple objects at once, do you fill the bed and print them all at the same time, or one at a time? We always print them all at the same time. So it goes and prints one layer at a time on all the parts. Some slicers do support printing one object at a time, but you have to factor in like your gantry clearances and your hot end clearances, and that can get kind of complicated. I just don't mess with it. We just print them all in one batch and let it go. Sam says, thanks for advice on the flex plate. Got it a couple days ago. It's awesome. Awesome. I'm glad you like it. I love them here. I've got, so like I said, I'm doing the video on the Easy ABL here, but once I'm done, I'm putting a flex system on it. So I had Aaron pull one on there. Let's see here. Aaron Phillips, is it worse trying to firmware patches or going with a full board replacing on the Artillery Genius? I don't have, I see that printer coming up more. Did they do a sale on it or something? I haven't messed with it. I would try their official firmware and see how well it works and if it meets your needs. If it doesn't, then, and you have the skills, I would, there's nothing wrong with doing a full board replacement as long as you have, the skills and patience to do it and do it right. So, Redline has a Sunlu S8. Hey, Redline, can you tell me what board you have in your S8? Because I got a report from a guy on our MeWe group that has an S8, and they has a different board than what was in ours. It was a, it was labeled the SH2560 A4988. I'm just curious. I want to just make sure I didn't miss anybody here. Oh, Richard says, since you no ownership to UK, can you recommend a place to get the Easy Flex plates? Not right now. We don't have any suppliers over there. I think Creality sells like their own brand. I haven't used them, but I know they sell some. I don't know too many UK sellers over there that carry the same kind of stuff we do, but I'm working on getting our stuff over there. Like I said, I wish we didn't have to cut it off, but the amount of paperwork that would be required to be compliant would be insane. And let's say we just said, screw it, we keep shipping to the UK. They would end up just stopping all our packages, and we have a bunch of pissed off UK customers because they weren't getting our packages because we weren't, you know, giving the UK their monies. So, let's see here. Oh, Nanaki said, you just replied to the question I was about to ask about the Easy ABL. My nozzle is touching the glass bed when it's setting probe points. Yeah, just like I said, play with the mounting height and make sure you calibrate at the right distance. Also, if your bed's that far out of whack that, you know, if it's not, like, you want relatively flat. Even if you have ABL, you want your bed relatively, I shouldn't say flat, but level. Like, yeah, I would recommend doing that. Kobeer, oh, you got my follow-up email. Yeah, so I set up in our mail system a thing to follow up with everybody to make sure that they get their orders, just because we've been seeing such a large amount of spikes in orders not getting there. And I'm actually pulling it up right now. 65% of people are opening that email, and then if you reply to that email, it automatically opens up a support ticket for you so we can look into it. Because, you know, we have people that sometimes forget about their orders, and, you know, it was going to be a pain because they'll forget about it and then it'll be past the insurance claim deadline, and, you know, then we get people that are pissed off. So took me longer than I care to admit to try to figure out that automation. But yeah, we do send out, I can't track with the system, be like, oh, is this, or if this order is not delivered, send it out. It just sends it out automatically after a set period of time after an order is shipped, to follow up. So that way it's just like, you know, hey, if you got it, let us know. Or if you got it, you don't need to do anything. If you didn't get it, let us know. And then, like I said, if you reply to that email, it'll automatically open up a support ticket for you. So, yeah. We also sent out an email today. I know, like, with, you know, even before all the crap happened with all the social media networks, we've been setting up camp on other platforms like MeWe and Library. But I did send out an email today. If you guys are using Library, it's LBRY. It's actually a completely decentralized open platform for videos, and like videos like this, and all, they do have a limitation. I think it's 2 hours is the max video length. All of our YouTube content gets backed up and mirrored over on Library, and I've been using Library a lot. I really like that they have a desktop app. Like, it actually downloads the videos to your computer, which is pretty neat. So even if I'm offline, like, I can go and download a bunch of videos that I want to watch, and it'll save it to a drive on my computer. But it's a really cool alternative for YouTube, you know, regardless of what your opinions are on, you know, the other big tech companies. It's always good to have more options, no matter what. You know, having all your eggs in one basket, especially when, you know, you can just get cut off at any moment, is never a bad thing, you know. And plus, I see people using the other platforms. I don't see anything wrong with using other platforms. So, I did get called a fascist though today because you know, we're on MeWe and Library. So, random guy on Twitter, you need to check yourself there. Like, some people, man. Let's see here. Let's keep going through the questions. I'm gonna go a little bit longer today, because we're already at 3:13. I'm gonna go a little bit longer because I do see questions in the chat. I'm gonna put right here. Here's our cutoff line. There we go. Let's see. Okay, so we got the Gen 3, the flex plate. Okay, here we go. Mega Zero. I have an Anycubic Mega Zero. I watched your video install your TH3D firmware. If I do this, will I still have the options and settings that are in the original firmware, i.e. baby stepping? Yes, absolutely. I love baby stepping. It's in there. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been very happy with the Mega Zero. So I did the heated bed upgrade on that, which I did document, like, most of the steps I did. It was more of a, hey, I did this project. Let me share you with what I did. I did post it in our help center. If you want to see, I do have the Mega Zero V2. I got to get some printer stream schedules for this week and next. Also, if anybody has recommendations for another platform to live stream on, I do have the capabilities with my server here to kind of multicast to different platforms with the RTSP stream. So if anybody has other platforms to live stream on that you think would be worth checking out, just let me know. But Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to lose any features going with our firmware. And our printer, anyways, the Mega Zero we got had the bootloader from the factory. So let's see here. All right, we already went that. Okay, the Redmonius. Which is better, your pin Sierra 10, Ender 3 Max, or Ender 6? So here's the thing with the Ender 6. I am very torn on that printer because out of the box, you should have access to the damn USB port. I understand you just unbolt the bottom and plug it in and use an extension, but the point is, it's not a cheap printer. It's over 500. It's like 550 to 600, depending on where you buy it from. They clearly don't want you using it with anything other than an SD card, which, know your market. Come on. People don't buy Creality printers to just use them stock. They buy them to modify them. So I'm kind of up in the air on that one. I think from what we've seen so far, I don't dislike it. There's some complaints I have about it that are like almost deal breakers. So, but I want to spend more time with that machine before I give the opinion. Now, the CR10, I love the CR10. CR10's always been, it's classic. It's a solid buy. CR10S is usually what I would go for because that's got the dual lead screws and the better board in it. As for the Ender 3 Max, that is still sitting in a box right here, literally right here. That's what this box is. So I can't comment on that one either. If it's anything like the Ender 3, it'll probably be a decent machine. In my opinion, the frame design for a larger machine, the CR10 I feel like is a little more stable and a little more better suited, but that's not to say the Ender 3 Max isn't going to print well. I have to, I haven't used it. It's still in the box, so I'm not going to be like, it's terrible. That's just where I'm at. So, I mean, the CR10S, the CR10S, CR10 V2, CR10 V3, they're all decent machines. You really can't go wrong going with stuff that's, been tested, has a huge community behind it, that kind of stuff. So, let's see here. Where else are we going here? Okay, next one. Strusselkuchen. Hopefully I said that right. Strusselkuchen. That's a fun name to say. Hey, Tim, I have a problem with ABS/ASA printers and enclosure with minimal cooling on the part. With minimal cooling, the part lifts after 3 layers, and without it looks really good. Without it looks really rough and layers slightly curl upward. Any tips? Is your enclosure insulated? What's your ambient temperature? Because if your ambient temperature is too high and the enclosure is not insulated, you might have to insulate your enclosure. Here's what I do for ABS. So maybe you're doing this already, maybe you're not. I use 100C bed temp. I use the Vision Miner nanopolymer on all of our ABS machines. It sticks the stuff down, especially on like PEI. PEI, you can get away with like smaller parts, but you start doing bigger parts. PEI, while it is a good like surface to print on, I found that ABS will sometimes come up, and throwing some Vision Miner on there keeps it stuck down. I do run like 40% on my layer fan after the 3rd layer, just to give it some airflow. But if your enclosure is not maintaining around 45 to 50 Celsius ambient temperature, you're eliminating the drafts, but you're still not going to be combating the shrinkage, so you have shrinkage. And there was a video a guy did, maybe I can replicate it really quick. Hang on. Let me move all this crap on my desk here. I have to clean up. Post-project mess. Post-project mess is what's on my desk right now. But it's a really good way to illustrate what's happening with ABS and what you're conquering. So, okay, I got my surface here. So, imagine each of these pieces of tape is a layer, okay? So, you got your first layer, okay? You put it down. Okay? Now we got our second layer. You put it down. Eventually, as I keep putting, you can already see it. Do you see it pulling up? There you go. That's what happens. And if I were to heat this up with like my heat gun, it would not do that. So basically what you're trying to do with an enclosure is getting the ambient temperature high enough to where the plastic doesn't want to shrink. And then once you're done printing, then the temperature can come down and everything can cool uniformly. So, that's basically what I do with it. I don't know what you're doing with your machine, but insulating your enclosure, I use like, I don't know where you're at in terms of country or whatever, but one thing I really like for my enclosures, and it's very cost effective, is you can get these rolls of like, it's like a adhesive, on foam, and then a metal, like a foil backing, and it's usually used for wrapping HVAC ducts. And it's nice because it's self-adhesive, so I'll cut that and put it on all the sides of my enclosure just to insulate, and it works really well. So also go get like a $5 thermometer or something, throw it in your enclosure, see what you're at. If you're not at least at 45C, that's probably why. If you are at 45C or higher, then I would recommend using some sort of bed adhesion promoter. I don't know what surface you're putting on, but I really like the Vision Miner nanopolymer stuff. It's really good. Some people have also had success with like an ABS slurry, which is acetone with ABS dissolved into it, and then you spread that on your bed surface. Just be careful with what surfaces you use it on, because acetone will dissolve like polycarbonate surfaces like our Easy Mat. Genuine PEI will not dissolve with acetone. But a very popular thing to do back in the day before stuff like Vision Miner nanopolymer was out was an ABS slurry, where you dissolve some ABS filament into acetone and then you brush that on your bed. So that's good in a pinch. Chris has got to run the physical therapy. Y'all have a great day. Well, you have fun at physical therapy. Let's see here. Yeah, Kobeer. Yeah, I wish that other tool changer system was not a Kickstarter. But I'm assuming they're probably going to be out of Kickstarter soon. Yeah, you're printing on glass. You definitely need something for adhesion on that. You need something. Yeah, ABS juice, ABS slurry. The Vision Miner works on the glass stuff too. I've used the ABS slurry before Vision Miner was a thing, but that's all we use now is the Vision Miner stuff. It just works. And it's alcohol based, it's not acetone based. So, let's see. How many of your upgrades will work with the SVO3 Easy ABL Easy board? I'm not sure, because I don't have that machine. I'm not going to order any more printers yet. But I believe the SVO3 uses the same board as the SVO1, so the board should fit. It looks like the same LCD, but like I said, I don't have that machine. If somebody has an SVO3 and you want to contact me directly, I'd be willing to like send you an easy board in exchange for a couple hours of your time to test and make sure everything works. It shouldn't be that many firmware changes, to be completely honest. It should just be mostly sizing from the SVO1. I'm willing to bet it would just be as simple as changing the X, Y, and Z size in the firmware, and flashing it like an SVO1. Does that make sense? Because I'm like looking at it, it looks the same as an SVO1. It's just larger. Same hot end type setup, same filament sensor. But again, I'm just speculating based on what I see here in the photos. But yeah, like one person, if someone wants to, either if you have an easy board or whatever, let me know. Yeah, it's a 221. Okay, that's not a bad board. Just keep an eye on the temps. Make sure that board stays cool, because those boards have had issues with the E-drivers going out because there's not a ton of copper on them. But it's probably quiet. Ryan says, I bought Easy ABLs are better support than email. I had it for 6 months and I gave up on the product because of a few issues trying to set up the sensor. So all of our support is on email, but we also have live chat during business hours. So to do the live chat, if you just go to our website, let me see here. Now, depending on how complicated your issue is and questions are, the live chat people may direct you to the tickets. We do everything over email because it's a lot more efficient, and we're going to ask you for different stuff. So if you click the little help there thing, you can hit get in touch, and then you can do a live chat, or you can, if you hit leave a message, just create a ticket. But our guys get back to people very fast. So, you know, it's usually less than 24 hours. So if you send them a detailed email, being like, hey, I'm having this issue, this is what I have, this is my printer, send them pictures of how everything's set up, send them your config file. The more information you give up front, the quicker they can get the issue resolved. So, but we don't do phone support because it would be impossible for us to not have a million staff members and drive prices insanely high, than doing everything through an email system. We literally have a thing in there. So I understand some people want to pick up the phone and talk to us, but the reality is, we're not Amazon that's got billions of dollars to hire a bunch of Indian people to answer phones all day. So, we have to do what makes sense. So let's see here. Rabah Hagri. It's an interesting name. When can I get my screwdriver set? As soon as I get them. I haven't got them yet. I did get photos though confirming the branding on the casing. So I'm assuming they're pretty close to shipping them to us. And we did just restock a bunch of stuff. If you guys have been following the site, like adding stuff to your wish list, that's how you can get notifications. If something's out of stock that you want, add it. Make sure you're signing with your TH3D account. You have to have an account to use the wish list feature. Add it to your sign to your TH3D account and add a product to your wish list that's out of stock. And then when it's in stock, the system will automatically email you within like 30 minutes of us stocking it. So it goes through and checks every 30 minutes to see if there was a product that was out of stock that's now not out of stock, and emails people who have it on their wish list. So someone has said the dog's still out. No, Samantha grabbed her. She was in the house, and I saw her office is right there. So I was like, let her in? And she was like, yeah. Man, chat's pretty active today. I am going to cut this off in about... Wait, did I go past my cutoff? Or was there just that many chats? All right, let's see here. Oh, God, there we go. Okay, there's a cutoff. Hang on. Oh, man. Man, you guys are chatty today. Wait, hang on. Okay, enable leveling, fade height. Okay, answered that. Just make something. I'm not sure what you mean. Did he post something else? I don't remember seeing that name. He said he has Ender 5 non-pro. The bed falls when power is lost. What is the replacement screw that I need to get with the brass part and spring? You'd want a 2-start 8mm lead screw. I don't know of the UK suppliers because we're not in the UK. But you'd want to get like a 2-start lead screw, which will be the 800 steps per millimeter. And then a matching brass nut. I'm pretty sure that uses a standard brass nut. So just measure the existing lead screw. Like in the US, if I need a lead screw, I'll buy it from a company like Ziltech. But I don't know what you guys have over there. But there's 1 start, 2 starts, and 4 starts. The 4 start is what comes on the printer, and that's the 400 steps per millimeter one. The 2 start is what they're shipping with the new ones, which is the 800 steps per millimeter, and 1 start would be 1600 steps per millimeter, and I do not recommend that because you're going to be driving the Z motor really hard and you lose a lot of torque. You can't run as fast at probing speeds. There are some people on eBay selling them for the Ender 5s, and then people are like, well, I can't move my Z and I'm using your firmware. It's like, yeah, because your pitch is too aggressive. 2 start is the max I would recommend. That's what Creality's using. So you could also try getting an anti-backlash nut. I believe the Ender 5 takes a standard one and not like the proprietary Creality ones like we have machined. I would probably just try getting an anti-backlash nut. That might help prevent the bed from dropping, but your options are doing the anti-backlash nut or changing it to a 2-start. So... Red Monius, shouldn't you have a thermal fuse with that? I'm assuming you mean the AC bed. You can put a thermal fuse in you if you want. I've done that on a few people's builds. Lawrence, have you tried the blue glass to help with watching a PC monitor? These actually have, I don't know if you can see it on here, but there's a coating on these. It's why it's kind of like purple. They have a coating for that. Is a Creality CY3 Creativity? I'm assuming, did you mean Creality? The CY300? Oh, no, Creativity. Interesting. Haven't heard of that one. I don't know. That looks like that. I wouldn't buy it. If I'm being honest with you, I probably wouldn't buy it. It's $375. I would rather get like a Sunlu. It's got these weird flimsy like brackets. It's very AlphaWise-esque. I probably would save your money. I would probably go with like a Sunlu S8 over that. Sinska is asking about the CR10 V2/V3 versus CR10S Pro V2. In my opinion, I think the CR10 V2 and V3, not only are they cheaper, but they don't use that proprietary touchscreen. So you have a little more options with firmware and upgrades. You can do the touchscreen replacement. Like we have a kit for that. But if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably go with the V2 or the V3. Let's see here. Jack Monroe. Oh, yeah. No, Jack, even if you upgrade the power supply and the ribbon cable, your LCD is still going to click because that board doesn't have it just doesn't have the correct filtering on the pins. Yeah, their printers seem okay. Their filament, I've printed some of their filament. It's been just okay. BMPN3. I can't get my tolerances correct. Easy board on my CR10. My extrusion is calibrated. All my axes are calibrated. Well, you shouldn't be calibrating your axes. Anybody who told you that is wrong. Your axes steps per millimeter, like your X, Y, Z, those are determined by the physical machine. You're probably making the problem worse. So on a CR10, your steps per millimeter on X and Y should be 80, and your steps on Z should be 400. Those are not a dynamic value. Like the extruder can vary a little bit depending on it, but your steps per millimeter on X and Y are determined by the motor step angle, the size of the gear or the pulley that drives a belt, and the belt tooth. So that's what determines your steps per millimeter. That's not a calibrate thing. I don't recommend people mess with that. And then same thing for the Z. The Z is determined by the lead screw pitch, the motor step angle, and then all of those actually to your motor stepping, your stepper driver stepping mode. So like 1 full step, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, etc. So, but you said you try to print a simple nut and bolt off Thingiverse. Start out by printing something like a calibration cube, like a 20 by 20 by 20 calibration cube, and measure that. Because here's the thing, I've downloaded so much stuff off Thingiverse, and the tolerances are garbage, and it's the model, not the actual printer. So, the calibration cubes are great because they're just supposed to be a 20 by 20 by 20 cube, and you measure those, and you can see how far off you are. And there's a lot of things that can influence that too. Not only is your extrusion, your steps per millimeter, your E-steps, but also the filament diameter. If you have a filament that's slightly above or slightly under, you can get over under extrusion as well. GIDY Tech says, I got a problem with my TMC 2209 SKR Mini E3. The E-stepper clicked even without load. Order replacement, but the problem was still there. Problem was solved by reducing current to 280. Well, it sounds like maybe their sense resistors are off, or there's a firmware issue, or and you can test this easily by putting in a different board. Maybe your wiring's messed up on your E-motor. Not sure. But I have seen people saying that they've had weird issues where like they have to set the current way low on those boards, like lower than they should to get the actual correct value because like something's off with how they're set up. Ryan says, should the green light on the EZ-ABL sensor be always on? So I'm assuming you're talking about the EZ-ABL Pro. So the Pro 18mm has 2 lights on it. It's got a green power light that's always on unless it's triggered, and then it goes from green to red. But the Mini, because it's more compact, we weren't actually able to put a power light in there. It just has a triggered light. So if you have an EZ-ABL Pro 18mm, it will have the green for the power, and then it'll turn red when the sensor is detecting something or triggered. And then the EZ-ABL Mini, yeah, let's get rid of this here. Bye-bye, spammer. Anyways, like I said, the Mini just has the red triggered light. Otherwise, there's nothing on it. But the EZ-ABL board itself, the control board, has a green LED on it. Illuminum says, hi, do I need a PT amplifier for Ender 3 Ender 3 V422 board. Can I use a PT1000 instead? I'm new and trying to print high temp. Thanks in advance. I'd probably go with the PT1000 over the PT100 because the PT100 does need an amplifier board. And I have not tried connecting that to that board, but I know the PT1000, I believe Marlin has a definition for that in it already. But the PT1000, as far as I know, do not need an amplifier board, and that'll be a much easier connection. RAM design, any chance you'll be doing a dual Z kit for the Ender 5, or can one use the Ender 3 kit? No, you cannot use Ender 3 kit. Not with a ton of modification. You might as well just design something from scratch, to be completely honest. But at this time, no, we're not doing one for the Ender 5. I don't know how much of a market there will be for that. I've just got, there's only so much time in the day, and I only have so much time myself and my staff. There's a lot of stuff I wish we could do, but the reality is, being a smaller company, we just don't have the time. Vinny is having issues with his BL Touch V3 on his Ender 3 V2 422. The probe works intermittently, and the majority of the time it fails a self-test when powering the printer on. Any troubleshooting tips? It sounds like you're having issues with a cable. I would probably get a new cable for that and swap it out. Verify all your connections before you replace the cable. But one of the things with the BL Touches, and one of the reasons I don't like them and I don't sell them, is those cables are so thin that you get a lot of voltage drop by the time it gets to the sensor, and then you're also battling electrical interference because they're not shielded cables. But I would check your connections. If your connections are good, I'd probably try to find another cable, or make your own extension cable, and use as little as little as possible, that little thin wire they give you with that probe, just so you have something with thicker gauge wire to carry it. So I do want to remind everybody, there's a line in the chat I typed a little while ago. We're already at 3:30. I try to keep these streams to an hour, but we are over. So let me see. Coffeeology is asking about, can I get an order shipped today? I know you asked that about 30 minutes ago, but our cutoff is 12 p.m. and UPS and USPS have already picked up. So if you put an order in, it would get shipped out tomorrow. UPS came at about 2:30. And USPS came about the same time, too. There's kind of a showdown with the trucks in the driveway, Let's see here. Hey says, I have Ender 3 Pro with the 8-bit board. If I replace it with the silent board from 427, do I need to work on the firmware or just plug it in and out? You're probably going to need to do firmware work. We have firmware for that board, and we also carry that board, too, in our shop. And the firmware is free on the site, so even if you don't get it from us, you can use the firmware. But you're probably going to need to flash firmware on it. Let's see here. Can I whistle a song? No. Let's see here. Gunnar White, would I recommend a BL Touch for Ender 3 Pro? No, I'd recommend our Easy ABL. It's quicker to install. It's got shielded wiring, so you're not dealing with weird issues with voltage drop and interference. And if you need help, we've got technical support over our email system. So we have actual people. It's not like I don't handle tickets really. I've got a couple. I mostly handle like the B2B stuff at this point, or like companies contacting us. But highly recommend going with our Easy ABL Pro. Let's see. Swap mail, it says open shipping up to India. No, we do not ship to India because it was over 80% of the orders that went to India ended up being fraudulent, and we ended up losing on it because, and the other ones, like very few actually got there. And then we had a high rate of fraud, and it was such a small margin, or such a small market, we just said it's not worth our time trying to ship there. So but anyways, that puts us at the cutoff point. We will be doing another stream. We do these every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. We usually try to keep them an hour, but I went over a little bit today because chat was quite busy. So I appreciate everybody that stopped by. I hope you guys learned something. And as always, happy printing.